Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the podcast where we really plunge into the heart of a story, peeling back the layers to get at those nuanced truths that often hide just beneath the surface.
That's right.
And today we're embarking on, well, a really profound and deeply unsettling journey. It's a narrative that almost defies belief, honestly. A stark, shattering contrast between what looked like the perfect all-American family and an unimaginable tragedy that just tore it all apart.
It's a pattern we see sometimes, but this case feels particularly jarring.
It really does. You often hear neighbors say things like, I never saw it coming. But here, the feeling was even deeper, more visceral. One neighbor, just reeling afterwards, said, and I quote, I could live a 100,000 lifetimes and never expect this out of that.
Wow.
Ooh.
Out of that. That really captures the disbelief, doesn't it?
Exactly. That profound shock, that's the raw emotion setting the stage for our deep dive today. We're talking about the Candy family massacre in Yukon, Oklahoma. It happened on April 22nd, 2024.
A date that community won't soon forget.
Absolutely not. And our mission here is to carefully unpack the sources you've given us, primarily a transcript from a true crime documentary focused on this case, and really try to extract the insights, the chilling details behind a life that, looked so perfect outwardly, but became this absolute nightmare. The central mystery, the thing that just gnaws at you is how could this family, seemingly so loved, so integrated, they were even on Discover Oklahoma, sharing favorite local treats, breakfast burritos, carrot cake, cannolis. How could they harbor such a devastating secret?
And that right there is the core theme we're digging into today.
Yeah.
This whole idea of hidden realities.
Yeah.
True crime often does this, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It pulls back that curtain, exposes the stark truth that behind these, well, picture-perfect lives, these curated smiles, there can be a dark secret nobody saw coming.
Nobody.
In this case, the immediate conclusion from the authorities was, frankly, brutal and shocking. A murder-suicide. The police stated pretty clear. Those children were hunted down and killed after the woman was killed.
Just horrific phrasing.
It is. But the deeper you go, the more unsettling the questions become. It wasn't just a tragedy. It was this brutal, unpredictable unraveling that turned their story into one of the most heartbreaking and honestly twisted massacres in Oklahoma history.
So our goal isn't just the what happened, right? It's the how. How was that image maintained? What was really going on beneath that calm surface?
Exactly. What were the currents nobody saw until it was far, far too late?
Okay, let's start there with that public image, because you really need to grasp that to feel the sheer scale of the shock.
It's fundamental.
From every angle, family photos, neighbor accounts, public interactions, the Candy family seemed like the absolute model of the ideal American family. You'd look at them and think, that's the dream.
Right. The two loving parents, the four active, bright sons.
Exactly. Living what everyone called a picture-perfect life in Yukon. Their photos weren't just snapshots. They radiated warmth, genuine happy moments, birthdays, holidays, school events, just joy.
That curated feed of happiness.
Yeah, but it felt real to people. Friends, neighbors, they all said things like they were the kind of family you'd see in commercials or heartwarming TV shows. They were the benchmark, almost.
And it's a phenomenon we see too often, that gap between the public face and the private reality.
Definitely.
The sources we're looking at really emphasize how well they, or perhaps specifically Jonathan, managed to keep up appearances. It wasn't just casual, it was meticulous.
To the point where the community believed it. Absolutely.
And that's the tragic irony, isn't it? That very success in maintaining the facade just amplified the shock, the disbelief when the truth finally came out. It's incredibly hard for people to reconcile that happy, vibrant image with the horror that unfolded.
It speaks volumes about privacy, maybe the pressure to seem perfect.
Absolutely. Performing that role for the world, it must have been utterly exhausting. The sources hinted that, the effort involved.
Which is why we need to look at them as individuals, beyond just the perfect family label. Let's start with Jonathan Candy, 42 years old, from Yukon, known as the cheerful, funny guy.
That's the consistent description, yes.
He had a part-time job at the Paycom Center. That's the big arena in Oklahoma City, NBA games, concerts, all that.
Right, a well-known venue.
Coworkers said he brought so much energy, even part-time, he could make the whole arena laugh. He went to Bishop McGinnis Catholic High, married his high school sweetheart, Lindsay.
Deep local roots.
Deep roots. But what really sounded to define his public persona was pride in his kids. Friends, family, they all heard him say his kids meant everything to him, how lucky he was, always projecting that image of the devoted, happy dad.
And Lindsay, his wife, She seemed to mirror that warmth, described as bright, fun-loving, originally from Prague, Oklahoma.
Yeah, active in church choir as a kid, known for her sweet voice and constant laughter, just someone who lit up a room.
That's a lovely description. And her connection with Jonathan.
The sources say it seems straight out of a movie. He made her laugh, she made him feel seen. They really look like a perfect match.
Complementary personalities.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then they had their boys. Dylan, the oldest at 18, Ethan, 14, Lucas, 12, and the youngest, just 10.
4 sons. A busy household.
You bet. And their social media, as you'd expect, was just filled with happy snapshots, birthdays, school stuff, holidays. The bond looked real, outwardly just radiating happiness.
So putting it all together, Jonathan, Lindsay, the 4 boys, the picture is overwhelmingly consistent, Evan.
Incredibly consistent. The picture-perfect family narrative holds up from every angle you look at based on what people saw.
Which, again, just makes what happened next so devastating, so hard to process.
Yeah.
You see the photos, hear the stories, and just think, how could this happen to them?
Right. No visible cracks in that facade. It reinforces how skilled they, or maybe he, were at maintaining that image.
It really does. It's a chilling reminder that what we see isn't always the whole story, not even close. Sometimes.
That public image versus private reality, it's a profound level of concealment.
Especially since they weren't withdrawn. They were active, engaged, seemingly happy. That makes it harder for the community to grasp because it challenges basic assumptions about what a stable family looks like.
You start wondering how well you really know anyone.
Exactly. The effort to keep up that illusion. The cost was just immense. Unimaginable, really.
And then comes the morning of April 22nd, 2024. The moment that picture just shatters.
The breaking point.
The sources detail it from the perspective of the youngest son, the 10-year-old survivor. Waking up, expecting a normal day, there was a box fan humming.
Oh, that detail is chilling. Asking the sounds.
Potentially, yes. He remembered hearing a fire alarm briefly during the night, but didn't think much of it, drifted back to sleep. But around 9 a.m., he opened his door and walked into a nightmare.
Just silence.
An unnatural silence, the source says. A silence that screamed something was wrong. And then he saw the blood. Blood everywhere.
Oh, God.
His mother, Lindsay, his 3 older brothers, Dylan, Ethan, Lucas, all shot, all gone.
Unimaginable for a child, for anyone.
And somehow, this 10-year-old boy, terrified, grabs a phone, calls 911. It's 9:30 a.m., and he calmly told the dispatcher something no child should ever have to say, that his family was dead. The composure, it's just heartbreaking.
The strength in that moment is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the immediate aftermath the scene responders walked into.
Must have been chaos. Police, emergency services rushing to the house near Southwest 29th and Czech Hall Road, sirens breaking the quiet, neighbors gathering, confused, then horrified.
They couldn't possibly have imagined what was happening inside.
No way. And once inside, the authorities quickly concluded it was a murder-suicide. Jonathan Candy killed his wife, 3 sons, then himself.
Grim, fast determination. But then comes the twist.
The huge, baffling question.
He left one child alive.
Yeah.
His 10-year-old son. And that act, sparing one amidst the devastation, just throws everything into question.
Look,
why?
Why kill everyone else but stop short? It goes against the usual pattern.
Completely. And the crime scene itself offered more disturbing clues. 2 victims upstairs, 2 downstairs. And crucially, no signs of a struggle.
No overturned furniture, nothing. Like they were caught completely off guard.
Exactly. Which deepens the mystery. In most family annihilations linked to suicide, tragically, no one is spared. The killer often acts out of a twisted desire to take everyone with them.
But Jonathan didn't. He stopped.
He stopped. And that specific decision has perplexed everyone involved. Dr. Joanne Johnston, a clinical and forensic psychologist consulting on the case, was quoted as being shocked. She said she'd never seen a case where a parent killed multiple children but deliberately spared one.
She called it baffling and emotionally complex.
Yes, and said it raised far more questions than it answered. That's the psychological puzzle here. What stopped him? Was it a flicker of conscience, a moment of clarity, or something else?
Was it mercy? Or was the motive maybe not uniform despair, but something targeted, and the youngest wasn't part of that immediate awful calculus?
Every possibility is horrific, and we're left with this profound void, this lack of understanding that might never be filled. It's deeply unsettling.
And that's where it gets even more frustrating, because you instinctively look for warning signs, right? Something must have tipped someone off.
You'd think so. You'd hope so.
But the sources are consistent. Friends, neighbors saw Jonathan in the days, even hours before, and he was just his usual self, laughing, joking. He was even at a Thunder playoff game the night before. Seemed totally fine.
Chillingly normal. hiding it with mastery if he was struggling.
And no hint of domestic violence. No police reports, no red flags, nothing to suggest the home wasn't peaceful.
The absence of obvious signs is almost as terrifying as the act itself.
It truly is. No cries for help anyone heard, no visible cracks, and yet within hours a family of 6 becomes one survivor. How do you reconcile that outward normalcy with the horror?
You almost can't. And that silence, that lack of external warning, forces us to look deeper, beneath that surface. Because the post-mortem discoveries, they painted a very different picture.
The hidden struggle.
Exactly. Financial reality was dire. The family was walking a tightrope under immense weight of serious financial pressure. Overdue bills, maxed out cards, growing debts. It was bad.
And Jonathan's part-time job wasn't enough.
Far from it. Irregular hours, modest pay. Just not enough for a family of 6. The sources contrast part-time pay, maybe $17 to $30 an hour, with potential full-time salaries at Paycom Center starting around $44K is going way up. He wasn't in one of those roles.
So he was likely barely scraping by despite the cheerful exterior.
Precisely. And it wasn't just the lack of money, it was the constant pressure to maintain that lifestyle, that image that his income couldn't support. A silent, festering wound.
And we know how he felt about it from his journal.
Yes. Discovered afterwards, he poured out his raw frustration, feeling inadequate, like he was failing his family, feeling disrespected, powerless as a provider.
His words painted a stark picture of a man who had lost control.
Control of finances, yes, but maybe also his identity, his self-worth, crumbling inside while performing normalcy for the world. That duality is terrifying.
And this strain impacted the marriage too, didn't it? Subtly at first.
Relatives noticed changes later, looking back, more withdrawn, distracted. The tension with Lindsay became more noticeable. Not loud fights, but a coldness, a distance.
That emotional exhaustion that erodes a couple from the inside out.
It's a classic pattern, sadly. Financial strain puts immense pressure on relationships, especially on fathers carrying that provider burden. Shame, failure, hopelessness can set in.
Which leads to one theory about that night.
Investigators and experts are considering it. An argument, a breaking point between Jonathan and Lindsay, maybe about money. An unplanned explosive act where he killed her.
And then panicked.
Panicked, faced with the horror, maybe decided the kids couldn't live with the trauma or the shame. A twisted, desperate logic leading not to surrender, but to annihilation, ending their lives before his own. It's just unthinkable.
Which brings us to the internal battle, the mental health aspect.
Critically important and tragically invisible here. Was he silently battling an internal war? A severe mental health issue he never spoke of, wearing that mask so convincingly.
It's possible, likely even, given the outcome.
And we know mental health challenges often manifest differently in men. Not always sadness or tears, but maybe retreating inward, isolation, irritation, anger, withdrawal. Less obvious signs.
They don't reach out.
Often, no. The stigma, especially for men, is still so powerful, conditioned to bottle it all up, tough it out. Showing vulnerability feels like weakness.
But without support.
The wounds deepen, become corrosive. And in the darkest places, some come to believe their family, the world, would be better off without them. And sometimes, tragically, take others with them.
It raises that awful question. How preventable was this if someone had seen something, if he'd reached out, if the stigma hadn't silenced him?
An immense, heartbreaking question with no easy answer. That weight is unbearable.
It really is, the silent battle behind the smile. But it's so important now that we shift focus, that we remember the lives lost. These weren't just names in a story.
Absolutely vital. They were individuals who touched so many lives.
Lindsay Candy, remembered not just as a mom and wife, but someone whose presence brightened every room. Her childhood friend, Cammie Cruz, shared memories on Facebook.
Growing up together, church choir, graduating in 2002.
Yeah, and that sweet story about falling asleep in a treehouse as kids, parents panicking, calling police, turned into this funny, cherished memory. Shows her spirit.
Testament to her playful heart.
Cammie said Lindsay was someone you could always pick up with right where you left off. A friend who stayed even in silence, just deeply loved. Her boys adored her, friends treasured her. Her laughter is what people remember.
It's a vibrant description. And Dylan, the oldest son.
Only 18. Just graduated Mustang High in May 23. Huge passion for music, drumming. He joined the Bison Brigade marching band at Oklahoma Baptist University right away.
Played first bass drama, a tough role for a freshman.
Showed his skill and drive. Brian Stackhouse, the band director at OBU, talked about Dylan's talent, but also his infectious joy, his kindness, how respectful he was.
He mentioned Dylan's excitement about a solo.
Yeah, couldn't sit still, bouncing with anticipation. That was him. Full of energy, always giving his best. His drum and uniform are in a memorial display at OBU now. A poignant tribute.
A fitting way to remember his passion. And Ethan, the 14-year-old.
He was the athlete. Ninth grader at Mustang North Middle School. Known for his baseball talent and commitment.
His coach called him Sweet Candyman.
Affectionately, yeah.
Yeah.
Coach TJ Armstrong said Ethan's smile lifted spirits. He was a true teammate, a best friend. The coach even said Ethan brought out the best in his own son.
That's high praise. The grief must be immense for that team.
Unfathomable. Coach Armstrong just wished it was a nightmare they could wake up from. Ethan's friends, Cooper Armstrong and Wyatt Libby, are struggling. They're setting up a memorial bench for him at the Mustang Youth Sports Complex.
A permanent place to remember his spirit.
Exactly. And then Lucas, the youngest brother, lost, just 12.
Attending Meadowbrook Intermediate.
Described as bright, lively, full of energy, loved being around people, often seen at his brother's soccer practices, just playing, laughing, making friends easily.
Just a kid full of life.
Remembered for his boundless energy and kind heart. His journey cut senselessly short.
These individual portraits, they're so important. They remind us these were vibrant people with passions, friendships, dreams, not just statistics.
Absolutely.
The memories paint this picture of lives lived fully, joyfully, which makes the loss even more profound. It hammers home that contrast again, the warm image versus the cold, brutal end.
And that brings us to the most heartbreaking part, doesn't it? The path forward for the survivor, the 10-year-old boy.
Lost his entire world in one night. Mother, father, brothers, gone.
At an age where life should be simple, he's facing unimaginable trauma, grief that no child should bear.
Thankfully, he's with extended family now, and authorities are prioritizing his healing, keeping him out of the investigation for now.
That seems right. And the community response.
Overwhelmingly supportive, love pouring in, social workers, grief counselors, trauma experts are involved, providing care.
The GoFundMe campaign did well, too.
Incredibly well. Helping with education, care, therapy, his future. It shows he's not alone. He's wrapped in this blanket of community love and empathy.
That's something, at least. And Jonathan's relatives spoke out.
Yes, released a statement expressing their confusion, heartbreak, and a desire for answers they might never get, echoing what everyone feels.
The whole community feels it. Neighbors like Michael Burham, 68, still can't believe it, remembering the laughter, the warmth.
Brian Graham remembered Jonathan as helpful, friendly, a good neighbor. But even he never saw the storm brewing.
Coach Armstrong, choosing to remember Jonathan as the thankful guy who gave hugs, holding on to the positive memories despite everything.
His wife, Rhonda, remembering Lindsay's loudest cheer at Ethan's games. That vibrancy.
It's that stark contrast again, isn't it? The warm memories clashing with the cold reality.
Exactly. And that profound disconnect has pushed authorities and mental health advocates to use this tragedy as an urgent call to action.
To speak up, seek help, break the silence.
Precisely. The message is stark. Mental health should not be hidden in journals or masked by fake smiles. This case proves even the happiest-looking families can be struggling immensely, silently.
It's a hard lesson.
A brutal one, but if we learn anything, it's that everyone is going through something whether we see it or not. We have to check in on people, listen, offer patience, kindness, time, and break those stigmas that keep people suffering alone.
Support groups and counseling are available now in the community, which is good.
It's essential. The Candy family is gone, but their memory, their tragic story, serves as this profound, unforgettable lesson about unseen battles and the vital importance of connection and open dialogue.
This deep dive, it really shows we might never fully understand what happened that night, what final thing pushed Jonathan Candy to that point.
Some answers may remain forever elusive.
But we absolutely have to honor their lives, Lindsay, Dylan, Ethan, Lucas, by doing better, by learning from this.
We have to.
It forces us to ask, doesn't it? What's our responsibility as a community, as individuals, to look beyond those perfect surfaces? How can we actively help break the silence around mental health, especially when it's hidden so well?
That's the lingering question, the challenge this tragedy leaves us with.
It really is. We need to be more vigilant, more compassionate, more willing to reach out before hidden battles become public tragedies. Something for all of us to think about long after this conversation ends.